Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to the Solforge weekly show. Now, I promised some sort of tournament report today because I took part in the Forge Watch qualifier last Friday. Now, I was going to do a sort of summary on all the games, but one, I had technical issues, but two, I realized that a lot of my tournament was a bit boring to listen to. So what I've done instead is I picked the two games which I think showcase the deck fairly well, and also my only legitimate loss, which was the Techonaut. My tournament history was a bit weird. I went 4-3 in Swiss, missed top cut. I think I got top 30 or something, and it was top 16. But I went 4-3 in Swiss, and two of my losses were attributed to leveling I drew 3 level 2 cards in one of my games, and I drew 4 level 2 cards in the other one, but one of them I couldn't play. So I just had to play something else. So it was really awkward. I just couldn't do anything. I think my it was my 4th and my 6th games were really bad. My 6th game, he drew 8 level 2s and I drew 4. And I mean drew, I don't mean played. I played 2 of them. I drew 4 total, and they weren't exactly good level 2s, and it was just a bad game. So going back on those things would not be the most interesting thing to listen to. And also my last matchup was the deck's best matchup, NT removal, and it was a steamroll, even though I didn't draw particularly well, he didn't either. It was a really slow-paced game, and I steamrolled him because of the matchup. So there weren't that many interesting games to actually talk about. However, I did pick 2 of the games which I think are fairly interesting, which weirdly enough was the first and second games from the Swiss. The first game, I actually ended up winning. The second game I lost because I took a gamble, which I'm going to talk about later on. But anyway, without further ado, we'll start with the first game, shall we? Now I am using Twitch to actually play this, and I'm hoping that this doesn't mess up. Anyway, so this deck is 80 robots. If I just stop here, this deck is 80 robots. Wait a second, 80. Yeah, I'll put the deck list in the description. I might do a deck tech on it at some point, but this is 80 robots. This is the deck I've been streaming a lot of recently. And I was just thinking, why pump your robots if you can just kill his? And that was sort of the logic behind the deck. And in testing it was really good. It was very good against NT removal, very good against Green, which is the succubus weirwood deck. Basically, it's my nickname for it. And it was good against AU Grobots. It only was weak to 2 decks, Drix and Mono Aloyan. Naturally, I played against 3 Drix this tournament, and I only hit 1 AU Robots, which I lost to, and 1 NT removal. So yeah, my Swiss rounds were a little weird, to say the least. And you could tell it was good. Drix, not that popular of a deck. It does decently, but it's not that popular of a deck. First game of the Swiss against Drix. But anyway, he opens with Drix. I open with Gargoyle Arcflight. The reason I go for Gargoyle is because leveling it against a Lion is incredible. They just can't deal with it. And Arcflight generally won't die. If he's playing AN Drix, he can have Cold Week for it. If he's playing AU Drix, he can have Basher and Bataminate, but that's about it. If he's playing Mono Aloyan Drix, he has no answer. So I just decided to throw it out and then just value him to death. Now, he goes for the Drix Gox for the massive power boosts, and I have a ridiculous play here. I can go Battle Tactician, and I can Magma Hound and Blightsteel Sentinel. Now, this was a little bit of a misplay. I should have done that the other way around. I realized that when I actually did it, but I should have played the Blightsteel in 5, Magma Hound in 4, because the Blightsteel would have lived, and the Magma Hound would have also lived. So I would have an incredible word advantage, and I still do, but it's not as high as it should be. So a little bit of a misplay on my part there. Now, he kills off my Arc Flight, which I was kind of expecting. However, this is one of the reasons I play 10-piece in the deck. Magma Hound. Magma Hound is incredible. The ability just to Magma Hound drop things to death is something very, very underestimated. And just through that turn, I went from having 2 creatures on the board with him having a Gargoyle to me having 4 creatures on the board with him having no Gargoyle, as opposed to 3 with a removal spell, or just like Necron would have to use Epidemic or something, or he'd have a Vitaminated 3/3, things like that. This is why I love 10-piece in this kind of archetype. So anyway, he had a really good start, I'd say, with the double Drix, Gox, and Metamind Adept, but he just couldn't answer any of the threats I put down. He just couldn't answer the Arc Flight, and he couldn't answer Blightsteel and everything. Now, I played Justicar here because I don't have any other creatures. That's about it. Now, before we move on, Ionic Warcharger. Ionic Warcharger is a 3-of in this deck, and it's the most underestimated robot in my mind. The stats are insane, and it has mobility. It's an incredible card. It's Gargoyle's copy 4 through 6. It's not as good as Gargoyle, but it's pretty close, and it actually dies to less. So if we look at the actual stats, 4/7 dies to Cull. 9/12 dies to nothing in 1, by the way, apart from Vitaminate, but Vitaminate kills everything, so I don't count it. It dies to absolutely nothing. No Cull, no Dreadbolt, no Epidemics, no Lightning Sparks, like, no your anti-bolts, nothing. The level 3 dies to only your anti-bolt level 3, nothing else. As I said, no Lightning Sparks, no Dreadbolts, no Culls, nothing. Only dies to Vitaminate and level 3 your anti-bolt. As far as I'm concerned, something that is that resilient is ridiculous. And the fact that it's a robot, you can power it out, it increases your robot count in the actual deck, and it was a very, very good card in the tournament. But anyway, moving on. So, going into player level 2 here, I've leveled 2 Magma Hounds, an Ionic, a Gargoyle, an Arc Flight, Senior Blowouts himself, and the Blightsteel Sentinel, and a Justicar. And a Battle Tactician. 8. Now, this opening hand is really, really good for player level 2. Getting the Magma Hound drop lets me just pick off anything he uses to block one of my Magma Hounds, for example. And the Battle Tactician will just wreck him here. But as you see, this Battle Tactician, I'm just going to go Battle Tactician, Magma Hound, kill the Predator with the Magma Hound, put it in front of the Gox. I should imagine. Oh. Okay, yeah. That actually, it makes sense to some degree. I ended up going for the more aggressive play in the Magma Hound in sort of the open lane. And the reason I actually went for that, and in hindsight it does make sense, is because I have access to things like Gargoyle, which live it, Senior Blowout himself, which live it, Ionic Warcharger lives it, things like that. I have a lot of cards, even like Justicar lives it. I have a lot of cards leveled in my deck that would live that Gox and trade evenly, as opposed to losing my Magma Hound for no reason. Not to mention I'm really, really far ahead on board, so just supplementing that, and I don't need to worry about my life total. Now he goes for the Metamind into the Cull, which is really, really good play. Now, this is one of the reasons why Magma Hound is so powerful. I can Blightsteel Sentinel, Magma Hound drop it, keep my Ionic alive, which normally wouldn't have happened, and I get 4 extra damage in. So it was just a really, really good thing to level up. Magma Hound is incredibly underestimated, as I said. It's one of the best leveling cards that 10-piece has. The level 1 is essentially 6 damage, level 2 goes up to 12, and the level 3 is just ridiculous at 19. It just picks off things continuously and is a very, very powerful and underestimated card. Now I've got a couple of options here. I think the most interesting one to me is probably Lightning Spark, the Drix, and then play Arc Flight. Unfortunately for me, it does mean that his Gargoyle will pick off my Arc Flight, but leveling the Arc Flight is better than just playing Fervent Assault on something. Fervent Assault is used to finish out the game, not so much just to remove stuff. So it's much, much better just to level my Arc Flight. Now, this perplexed me. I don't understand why he left this Arc Flight alive. I think he really underestimated the power of Arc Flight. I'm just going to go ahead and play a Justicar in front of that. The reason I put the Justicar in front of it is simply because I want mobility out on the side, I want robots alive. Justicar I don't really care about, and I just want my mobility creatures to have options. Justicar, I can throw him out, he's a good creature stats wise, but I can just throw him out, I don't actually need the effect. Now, for me, obviously, it's Battle Tactician into the Justicar. Slight misplay on my part. Don't put it next to, don't put it in front of the Gargoyle. You want to put it one off to the side. And the reason for that is he can't just buff, you can't just buff it into Oblivion, kill the Justicar, move in front of the Battle Tactician and kill that. You want him to have to move to get a trade, and then he just can't sort of rattle you off. Now that Ionic, the ability to move, is making this move quite difficult for him. I also have Magma Hounds, which will burst through almost anything. I have 10 damage and Magma Hound drops. The Battle Tactician only needs to hit him once. I even have a Gargoyle. It's just pretty much over. I even have a Lightning Spark. Like, I can deal, what is that, 14 damage? Yeah, 14 damage to a single target. Not him, unfortunately, but 14 damage to a single target, and the Battle Tactician attack will kill him. So there's pretty much no way out of this for him. And it was surprising that I actually did so well in this game. And as I said earlier, Drix is one of my worst matchups with this deck. The reason I ended up winning this game was simply because I never gave up board position and I leveled the appropriate cards. I leveled my Battle Tacticians, my Gargoyles, Magma Hounds, things like that. I'm just going for the double Magma Hound drop here. I could have Lightning Sparked it, but it doesn't actually matter. And kill him with the Justicar. So, as I said, that first game was more to do with board position. He had a really strong start. He got the double Drix, Gox, Metaminds. But the problem was, he got a strong start, but I got a very strong start. I got my Arc Flight comboing into Battle Tacticians and Blightsteel Sentinels, Magma Hounds, and Gargoyles, and it was just too much for him to deal with. He just couldn't keep up, and the major misplay that sort of swung the game away from him stabilizing, which is what he could have done, he almost stabilized, which was when he didn't kill my Arc Flight with his Gargoyle. He decided to trade with my, I think it was a Gargoyle. No, it was an Ionic. He decided to trade with my creature that was offensive as opposed to kill the Arc Flight. And because he didn't do that, I got a level 3 Gargoyle in my deck. I managed to get some mobility down. The Ionic War Charger did a lot of damage on its own. And I killed his Drix. So I just got a really good turn off when I shouldn't have been able to, and I think that was the turning point. Because he was starting to stabilize until that happened, and I just flooded the board and swamped him. So anyway, Game 1 was a bit of a surprise for me for winning that, because traditionally Drix has been a bad matchup for me, and I normally can't keep board position. But as I said, keeping board position, super powerful. It was a lot to do with me not knowing how to play against Drix, I think it was most of the time. By the end of the tournament, I was much better at playing against Drix. I actually played against Drix 3 times, and I only lost to it once, which was in Game 6, and I drew nothing. So, weirdly enough, at the end of the tournament, this win wouldn't have felt so weird. But at the beginning of the tournament, it felt really odd, because I just didn't really know how to play against Drix, and weirdly enough I figured out how to play against Drix with this deck during the tournament playing against Drix. It was quite a funny experience. But anyway, on to the second game. Now, the second game, I got paired against Techonaut. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Techonaut is one of the best players in Solforge, period. And he was playing AU Robots, which I fully expected. I was expecting Techonaut to play AU Robots as the deck that he is most accomplished with, the deck that he knows best. So, keeping that in mind, I leveled the Battle Tactician instead of the Ionic. Battle Tactician is much better against robots than Ionic because it helps get through some of the armor against Gargoyles, and they're both good. Justicar was terrible to start with, but they're both good, and Battle Tactician is a little bit better to level. Now, for this turn, I want to play Squadron Sentinel, but Matrix Warden might have to be played at some point. Same with Metasculpt. Metasculpt I do run to deal with Thundersaurs and Grimgaunt Devourers mainly. Sometimes Gargoyles, but mostly Thundersaurs and Grimgaunt Devourers. It's a very obscure counter to Thundersaur, but you can Metasculpt a Thundersaur before it gets hit and it becomes a 0-12. Okay, so I think that this is pretty much green light for the Arc Flight. I do think I end up going for the Matrix Warden instead of the Sentinel, just to kill that Sentinel, keep his board clear, threaten any battle tacticians coming down, things like that. The Heart Tree is really going to mess with me though this game. Even though I did have the opportunity to kill it later on, I took a gamble that I shouldn't have. Yeah, man. Yeah, this is what Tekkenol's known for. He thinks everything out. Very, very slow player. Very, very good player, but very, very slow player. Now, I'm splitting up my creatures because I don't want to deal with a gargoyle killing both. So I'm just splitting them up as much as possible. Now, for this turn, this is probably going to be an Ionic War Charger Matrix Warden. If he doesn't kill the Squadron, then I'll just play Lightning Spark probably. He does, however, Petaminate it, so I'm probably just going to go for the Ionic War Charger Matrix Warden play. And he go for the Thundersaur. Now, Thundersaur is annoying, to say the least, because of that regen, I can't kill it. That's the only reason I can't kill it. And I need to kill the Thundersaur. I really wanted to kill that Heart Tree, but I need to kill this Thundersaur, and that's the problem I had there. Otherwise, he would have hit me for 12 next turn, and I can't really handle that. But this Heart Tree is going to be an absolute thorn. This Heart Tree did a lot of damage throughout the game and was really, really difficult for me to deal with because of the regen. But I still think that taking 12 was probably not worth it. So he does go for his own Arc Flight into Patriarch. So at this point, I have to go for the Battle Tactician and Magma Hound. I have to kill that Arc Flight without fail. I have to kill the Arc Flight, but again, I can't kill the Heart Tree. I had so many opportunities when I could have killed the Heart Tree, but I just wasn't allowed to. Simply because of the other threats he was playing. Like, I have to deal with that. It was the only way I could have. Drew the Metasculpts now, but this is when the gamble comes in. What happens here is that I miscalculate the number of cards he has that can punish me for this. He plays Gargoyle, and I have to make a decision here. He plays Gargoyle, Sentinel, blocks my guy. Now, I have a level 2 Arc Flight that I need to play. If I play it in front of the Heart Tree, and I pretty much have to Metasculpt the Heart Tree before I go ahead here. I had a couple of options. Either don't Metasculpt the Heart Tree and play Arc Flight in front of it, which I think in hindsight was the better play, but I kind of need Metasculpts to deal with the upper leveled, sort of the upper leveled Heart Trees. So I decided to Metasculpt this Heart Tree. And Arc Flight Squadron would die to Basher if that was the case. But then by playing it the way I did, I was thinking, wait a second, so it dies to Roar or it dies to Basher? But he's in player level 2. He wants to level, like, a Basher might be more useful than a level 2 Roar in player level 3. That was my thinking. In hindsight, I think it's about even. But the miscalculation I made here was that I thought it was 3 Bashers compared to 3 Roars. It wasn't. It was 3 Bashers compared to 3 Roars and 3 Battle Tacticians. And as a result, I lose my Arc Flight here. And that probably causes me to lose the game. In all honesty, I probably lose the game because of that one play. I mean, look at my hand. He didn't have the Basher. Look at my hand. This would have destroyed him if I could play all 3 level 2s here. But I can't. So I lose my Arc Flight here to a Battle Tactician, and I'm more or less screwed at that point. And not to mention this archery is going to keep doing damage for the rest of the game. So it's small misplays like that which came really from sort of the pressure of being in a tournament and not thinking the play fully through. Played a little bit too quickly on that turn. I was pretty okay on thinking on my opponent's turn as well while looking at my hand for the rest of the tournament, but for this particular one it cost a lot. Like, he killed my arc flight and I have no answer to his arc flight, and that is where the problem came in. I need to level his battle tactician and the war charger might kill the arc flight next turn. But now he has arc flight squadron, he gets to go off with it, he gets his robots down, and I'm in trouble. And that is the swinging moment of this game, essentially, was that one arc flight swing, where he could kill mine because I made a misplay and I couldn't kill his. So he gets the 3 actions and I didn't. And that's what it came down to, really. Like, that shows how volatile the robots matchup is. Just one thing caused pretty much the end of the game. Now the Bataminate comes out here, which allows me to play the second battle tactician in the middle, which is kind of funny. But yeah, and he goes for the Sentinel. Now I think the correct play here like, that's only 2 actions though, so he still has like another thing. But looking at his board now, the correct play would be Battle Tactician in the middle, Magma Hound his Arc Flight in front of the Heart Tree, which would kill his Heart Tree, his Battle Tactician Squadron, and Sentinel, while leaving me a 7-8. And yeah, that would still be the better play, I think, would be just to go straight for that. So, anyway, coming back into my turn, I still think the correct play is in fact the Battle Tactician into Magma Hound. But I end up going for the Sentinel. Now I get a little greedy with the Sentinel, to be honest. I wanted to keep board position, but as a result he keeps some of his, and he's playing Weirwood Patriarchs. So that Heart Tree is just not going to die, and is probably going to keep dealing damage again for the rest of the game. But my logic in leveling the Sentinel there was simply because I wanted to have a stronger threat. But that's what happens. He has a stumbling hand. In the last turn I had 1 level 2, 1 level 1, wasn't too great. In his hand he has 1 level 2, 1 level 1, but they're Weirwood Patriarchs. And Weirwood Patriarchs scale off each other, essentially. The level 1 scales off the level 2 and 3 extremely well. And that is when I fully lose the game and I can't come back from this. I do still feel like it came down to me not having those 3 plays, and not to mention this Heart Tree is going to keep dealing damage and I can't stop it. But it still feels as if there were 2 turning points in this game. The Arcflight Squadron play and the Weirwood draw. Now the Arcflight Squadron play was something I could control, the Weirwood draw not so much, and that's why I was irritated about it. That's basically what you can say. This game, for me, came down to the Arc Flight, although the actual game ender itself was the double Weirwood. This situation shouldn't have really happened, considering the earlier plays. Now, my level 3 starting hand is extremely good, so I can just kill both of these guys and keep my stuff. But this Arc Flight needs to live, and I need to draw at least 1 level 3 robot. And I passed my turn, and that was my hope for coming back to this game, was getting a level 3 robot and this Arc Flight living. I don't get a level 3 robot, I get a level 1 robot, and I get another Battle Tactician, which is pretty much the worst level 3 I could have drawn here. Gargoyle would have been incredible, Ionic War Charger would have been incredible, anything. But Battle Tactician was the worst one I could have drawn. It's a penalty for leveling 2 of them, but you draw them more consistently, so it's good. But I just lost the opportunity to come back into this game, and this was all caused by my misplays. And Twitch video decided to reset itself. Okay, but anyway, the reason I'm showing this particular game was, as I said, the other 2 losses were kind of meh. But this particular game, I felt as if I learned a lot from playing against Techonaut, to be honest. It's one of the most interesting matches I've played in a long time. In terms of Solforge, there was some very, very tangible misplays that caused me to win slash lose. And that's why I loved playing this particular game so much, and looking back on it, it's something that you can really learn from. Is certain misplays you don't notice when you first play, but then when you look back on it, you really do notice them. And this was one of those situations. I go down to 9, and I can't kill his gargoyles, and I die. This is that's essentially the end of the game at this point. Now, I really did think, like, is there a way of me living? And I kind of came close, I guess. Like, Battle Tactician. My way of living was Battle Tactician in front of the gargoyle, like the 11/11 gargoyle. Putting a free gargoyle in front of his 10/7 and meta-sculpting it. But the problem is that the Weirwood Patriarch and the Battle Tactician die. So he just moves the gargoyle over and kills me. But anyway, those are the two most interesting games from the actual tournament. As I said, the rest of them, if I just run through them quickly, I played against AN Drix. I pretty much crushed it. He got a bad draw and I didn't. I got a pretty good draw. And I actually go for the Fervent Assault, which is interesting because I wanted to start killing these things as opposed to leaving it that way. But now I can't meta sculpt. And yeah, I just can't live. But anyway, so the rest of the tournament, there was AN Drix, which he drew badly. I didn't flatten him. NT Removal, which was fairly even in terms of draw. It was a pretty fair game, but the actual matchup itself was horrible for my opponent, so I just flattened him because the actual deck is very, very good against that. Rest of the stuff, we had the two other games I lost to another AN Drix, and what was the other one? What's something else? Can't remember. But anyway, and the last game I sort of won that I came out on top of was against Succubus Weirwood, which was a very close game and was one of the ones I was thinking of showing on here. But there wasn't too much in terms of misplays and such. And I'm going to pause before I go into another game. There wasn't too much in terms of misplays to really learn from, or sort of anything general. It was just a very, very good game, and it's one I'm glad I played. As for the rest of the tournament, it was very, very well run. The tournament organizers did a fantastic job about it. Brackets were well managed. I'm glad I took part, and I'm going to take part in some of Forge Watch's other tournaments. I just wish they'd hold them more often. One a week would be nice, but one a month is what we're doing with at the moment. I'm testing a new deck at the moment for the next Forge Watch qualifier. I'm not sure if set 2 is going to be out before then, though. So I'm not sure, but that deck I'm probably gonna look into for a deck tech after the next qualifier. If you want the deck list for the deck I played in this qualifier, I'll put it in the description. I might do a deck tech of it if people actually want to see that and sort of do an example game. But the reason I didn't tag one onto this is because I feel like the two games in the background were kind of supplementary to the actual what the deck is, and showed more about how it's played and how it should be played, and etc. The only thing was I didn't really showcase sort of Justicars and how good they are. People play 3. 2 is what a lot of people have been doing, but you really need 3 against Zemus. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. But as for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.